Woman feels something in jacket lining. She's shocked when she tears it open. This woman got the fright of her life when she tore open the lining of her jacket. When she put the jacket on, she almost instantly got the feeling that something wasn't right. It felt a lot tighter, somehow. And when she examined it closer, she immediately saw why. There was something hidden inside. The jacket that started it all belonged to a young woman called Jessica Lewis. It hung in her closet for over 2 seasons, but winter was approaching, and it was time to dress a bit warmer. But when she picked it up, a musky smell surrounded the jacket. It definitely needed some dry cleaning love. And as far as Jessica knew, the dry cleaning business did a great job. They removed the smell that still lingered in her nose right before she picked up her jacket. She was happy with her garment once more. And it couldn't have come at a better time. Because outside, a storm was brewing. She put on her fresh-smelling coat and traversed the rainy streets like it wasn't bothering her one bit. But that happy feeling was about to change completely because when she was halfway home, a nagging feeling started to arrive. Not in her thoughts, but an actual nagging feeling in the jacket itself. Because as her journey homeward continued, her jacket started getting more and more wet from the rain. Jessica felt that the left side of her jacket started tightening severely around her chest. And this wasn't just a minor nuisance. No, it felt like there was something way off with this coat. It didn't take long for the jacket to get so tight that it was too uncomfortable to wear. Something was growing inside of it, and it was freaking Jessica out. She didn't care that it rained at that point. That jacket had to come off. She unzipped it and threw the jacket on the ground. It must have been a weird sight for people passing by. Because Jessica was standing in the pouring rain, staring at her jacket. But it was a good thing that Jessica did it. Because when the jacket fell on the ground, the inside lining was revealed. And it gave Jessica a huge shock. Jessica looked on in horror as she looked at her jacket on the ground. She could clearly see where the problem area was. Because just beside the zipper, on the left side of her jacket, the jacket had bulged tremendously. And not just that. It seemed like there was something moving in there. The movement of the jacket scared Jessica to the bone. It's just a jacket. It shouldn't do that. Jessica spoke out loud, stating the obvious. It came in waves, pulsating upwards and making the bulge bigger every time. Is there an animal in there or something? Jessica thought to herself. She tried to calm herself down a bit. Mostly because she saw people staring and hated being the center of attention. After about a minute, she found the nerve to crouch down beside the jacket. Jessica stuck out her hand and ran her fingers along the jacket's lining. There was something sticking out. Jessica was completely confused. The pieces sticking outwards were white and almost seemed hairy in a way. Maybe there really was an animal inside there, but if so, how did it get in there? At least the pulsating movements had stopped. But the jacket itself remained bulged. The anticipation was killing her. She wasn't going to put the jacket back on before she knew what this was. So, with a bit of sadness in her heart, she used her fingers to tear open the lining of her precious jacket. At that point, she was still fully expecting something to jolt out of there. But nothing really happened. By removing the stitching held down the jacket's lining, Jessica was able to reach her hand inside. It was scary, sticking her hand into the unknown like that. But doing nothing wasn't an option either. She reached in and felt around for a bit. And then she pulled out a bulging white canvas bag. Jessica could clearly feel that the thing was in high tension. Like something inside was trying to push its way out. With her fingernail, she made a small hole in the bag, and to her surprise, dozens of packaging granules came rolling out. You know, the ones they put in packages to protect products. The packaging granules were all swollen up, probably because they absorbed rain during the storm. But why was this bag in her coat in the first place? And maybe even more important, what were these granules protecting? And right at that moment, Jessica got her answer because a phone started ringing from within the bag. The ringing sound made Jessica jump a bit, but it also captured her attention. She brushes the granules aside, letting them roll on the street beside her. The phone looked primitive, like something her mom would have owned way back in the day. "I wonder who's calling," Jessica now said, intrigued. Jessica held the phone in her hand and looked at the tiny screen at the top. The caller was unknown. Normally, she wouldn't even answer her phone when an unknown call came in. But this day had already been so bizarre. How much worse could it get? With a sense of curiosity, she answered. Hello? Who is this? Who am I speaking to?" The phone was quiet for a while, like nobody was on the other end of the line. But then Jessica got the fright of her life. Because a male voice was heard through the device, it spoke Jessica's name and quickly hung up. Jessica stared at the phone in disbelief. This day was getting weirder by the minute. How did this person know her name? She didn't recognize the voice, but it sounded deep. But this phone wasn't finished with her yet. While contemplating, the device in her hand rang again. This time, it was a text message. As expected, the text was from an unknown sender once more. But this text message had a little bit more to say than the caller did. It unfortunately did not answer any questions the young woman had. It only confused her more. The message read, "Look for the roads, the truth awaits." What is all of this? Jessica now spoke with a louder voice. It was clear that she was becoming frustrated. She was fully drenched from the rain, her jacket was messed up. And she was standing in the middle of the street with a strange cell phone. There was only one logical thing to do now. "I have to get back to that dry cleaner," Jessica said to herself. The rain had stopped at that point, so Jessica picked up the jacket from the ground and didn't even bother putting it back on. She held all the objects in her hand and walked to the store, hoping to get some answers. The dry cleaning owner was already standing behind his desk when Jessica entered. She came in with a stern look on her face and put all the objects in front of him on the counter. Jessica pointed out the tier and explained the phone that was hiding inside. "Do you know anything about this?" But the dry cleaning owner made a face that was unmistakable. He shrugged his shoulders and said that he was just as confused as she was. He had never seen that phone before in his life, and he handed back the jacket to Jessica personally. "I'm sorry I can't help you, but there was one thing he could do." He, first of all, apologized for the damage to her jacket. Even though she did it herself, he felt like it was also the shop's responsibility. He offered to repay the damage. But that last information fell on deaf ears because that's when Jessica saw something. Because behind the man hung something that shot a bolt of electricity through Jessica's heart. Behind him hung multiple jackets on a clothing rack. Nothing special, of course. It's a dry cleaner, after all. But one of the jacket's labels was addressed to Jessica Rhodes. "Rhodes, the young woman hummed out loud. This was too weird to be a coincidence, Jessica thought. The text message specifically said that she had to look out for the Rhodes. And now she saw a label in the same suspicious shop that combined her name with that cryptic message. She then realized that the caller wanted her to come back here. She knew she needed that jacket, and she also knew she wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. So Jessica apologized for her confrontational approach just now. And after that, she told the owner that she was also there to pick up the order for Jessica Rhodes. The owner looked at Jessica for a moment, but he had no reason to expect that she was lying. He put down his pen and turned around, looking for the matching label. "Oh yes, here it is." He handed it over to Jessica, who was more than eager to grab it out of his hand. The young woman almost ran out of the shop and didn't hesitate to inspect the garment. She ran around the corner, laid it down on a park bench, and felt around inside its pockets. The first two pockets were empty, but in the third one was an envelope. She opened it and started crying. The envelope was filled with multiple pictures. All were from herself at various stages of her younger life. "Who took these pictures? Was someone watching me?" Jessica said while tears continued to stream down her face. She had never seen these photos before. And the whole thing messed with her mind quite a bit. She was alone in almost all of the pictures, adding to the scary feeling that she was being watched. But there was one picture where she shared the frame with someone. Jessica estimated that she was about 3 years old in the picture. And in it, she shared a smile with a man. She did not recognize the man. But it seemed that she did when she was younger. At the top of the photograph, there was a little white border. And in it, somebody scribbled something with a black pen. The family home on 123 Harold's Drive, it said. Jessica knew she had to go there now. She rushed home, and from there, it was only a 15-minute drive to the address mentioned. Arriving at the place, she saw a small but cozy house. It had a wooden porch and many flowers surrounding it. She held up the photo, a perfect match. Even the flowers were still the same. You might think that Jessica was nervous, but somehow, she felt determined and calm in a way, like she was meant to be here. The young woman walked up to the doorbell and rang it. An old man opened up. Head had kind eyes and told Jessica that he was expecting her. Come inside. It was a wild experience. Who was this man? Was he the one in the picture? Jessica sat down, and the man immediately apologized for all the mysterious things that happened during the day. He said that he was the one who placed the phone in her jacket. But he had a good reason. Jessica was curious to hear the old man's so-called reason. But before he even had the chance to speak his first sentence, he was interrupted by the front door being unlocked. It swung open, and a voice was heard from the doorway. "Dad, I'm on my break. Are you hungry?" That voice. "I know who you are," Jessica said while squinting her eyes in frustration. Yes, she recognized that voice instantly. And the now angry woman rushed towards the front door to meet it. It was the dry cleaner's owner. And now he was here, he had a lot of explaining to do. Jessica now stood just half a foot away from the man, almost pressing her body into his. Frustrated, she started yelling at him. "You filthy liar. You told me you had no clue what the phone in my jacket meant. But you did know something. Why else would you be here?" The dry cleaning owner took a step back out of initial fright of Jessica's reaction. Jessica was waiting for his response. But that response came from the old man in the living room. "My son didn't know anything about this. I did all of it behind his back. Come back here," the man pleaded. They walked over to the living room and sat down in the chairs across from the old man. The old man took a deep breath and started talking. "All right, like you might have noticed, this man here is my son. His name is Andy. But I am not just his father. I'm also yours, Jessica." Jessica was in shock when the old man told her this news. He continued by explaining that he used to be married to another woman. Their relationship ended in divorce. But before everything went sour, they had a beautiful daughter named Jessica. "That's you." The divorce came with strings attached, though, the man said, weeping. His ex-wife filed a restraining order against him, wanting sole custody of their daughter. He didn't want to agree with it. But a judge eventually ruled in her favor. He respected the decision for years. He even started a new family of his own. He had a wife and a son. He was happy until today. Over the years, I found out that my ex-wife remarried. And that she also legally changed your last name to his. Lewis was that name. So when your jacket came in today, and I saw both of those names together, I instantly recognized it. I simply couldn't just do nothing. My son does customer contacts in the front, and I sometimes help out with steaming in the back. A place with a lot of privacy and more than enough time to slip that protected phone inside your jacket. I wanted to reconnect, but when you picked up, I got nervous and hung up. The old man hoped that by texting her, things would go better. But he couldn't just simply text her that he was her father. She would have never believed that. So, he planted multiple small seeds in her path. Just enough to lead her to this house, hoping that it would work. And it did, the old man said with a careful smile. But the most important part was yet to come. He looked at his estranged daughter and said that he hoped she could forgive him. Forgive him for all those years when he did not contact her. He simply had no choice. It was silent for a moment. The lingering tension made the old man visibly nervous, Jessica could tell. But then she broke the string of tension and lunged forward, giving her father a warm hug. It was a feeling he had not felt in over 30 years. But why? Her father just got out. Why would you forgive me just like that? Jessica said that it wasn't his fault. He was following the rules. It must have been hard for you, but consider us a family once more. Jessica looked at her father and promised to reconnect with them. There was a lot to catch up on. A few months later, the three of them were thick as thieves. They visited each other multiple times a week, and they were really starting to see the similarities in their personality. And believe it or not, but Jessica's mom even buried her grudge. She gave her blessing, and a new family life could blossom.